Hey there, welcome. This is Christian here, and I thought I would share a little personal update and a Heart IQ update because for me they're similar. So much of my personal life is entwined with my work because my work is my love and my passion. So, yeah, well, right now I'm back at New Eden, as you can tell by the green behind me. In fact, the green is so bright, it's so spring here that it's coming through, and I can see some of my face is colored green. It's not artificial. This really is a very special time of year. I was in Dubai for a couple of weeks, and then I came back, and when I landed back on this land and I put my feet on the grass and I looked around, because this really is a special time of year, the bursting green that comes out of these leaves and trees, just for a few days, it's got this bright, almost psychedelic color to it that is profound. And I just had this big smile on my face, and I could feel this homecoming. I love traveling, and I feel I'm a home in many countries, global citizen and all that, and yet there's something about coming back to this space, especially at this time, that just totally lights me up. I also have the blessing of having my parents stay for a couple of weeks. We have a new tiny house on the land that overlooks the pond, and now that the spring is here and we have a beautiful deck and there's fish in the pond and there's these big birds of prey that come in and out and the frogs sing. It's just like being in a nature reserve, and it's really lovely to have my parents here more consistently. They come several times a year and just stay now for a few weeks in their own little house. So events can happen here, group things can happen, parties can happen, and they have their own space. Talking of which, we had a beautiful birthday celebration of a little man, 3 years old, Shaden, who has been living here for the last 3 years since he was born. So it's been great to have children in the space. And before Shaden was here, we actually had Teo, Paulina's son, also spending the first 3 years of his life here. So for the last 6 years, we've had a New Eden child. And it's just been a real blessing. I love having kids in the space. And we celebrated his 3-year-old birthday yesterday, and had family over and just had this beautiful time, just out in the sun, sharing food, laughter. This is the time when I can just sit in reverence and in gratitude for, like, wow, this space, this heaven exists on earth where we can just gather with friends. It's these simple moments that really touch me, not just the profound circle events that we do here, but it's just those moments of like togetherness, family and home that really touch me. I'm very, very grateful for it. And this weekend is one of my favorite times of the year. Can anyone guess what it is? Eurovision. Some people hate Eurovision. It's like the cheesiest, weirdest show on the planet. And yet I've always loved cheesy music. I used to be a DJ, and I can bring actually good quality music into my retreat spaces too. Ask anybody who's been in Circle and they'll say I pick good music for the right moment. And there's a side of me that loves cheese and loves the costumes and the weirdness. And every year for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years at New Eden now, I've been here at this time, and we open it up and we say, hey, come for a bit of a party, bring your drinks and your food, and we just hang out. And we got a big cinema here with, 4K projector and a big screen, so we can all gather around and laugh and have a lot of fun. So that's happening on the final, the Saturday night here. We get to have a bit of a cheesy celebration. Yeah, what else can I share? Well, as many of you know, I was in Corinth, Berlin, a few weeks ago, doing the first module of the field training. Really grateful to be part of this project with Rachel, this year-long facilitator training. And it's really the only facilitator training. I say that's not exactly true. It's the main facilitator training I'm invested in that is what we call a long form container. That is where people are on a journey for an entire year. There are a couple of actual facilitator training events, very specific, like a 5-day here, a 7-day here, but it's not connected to a larger journey. And a lot of people have been asking me, it's like, how do I get trained as a facilitator? When's the next kind of long program where I can really take every single step and get certified? And that's going to be more attuned to next year's experience. So in 2024, I have that kind of like locked in. For this year, I'm really enjoying devoting my time to other projects, collaborations and experiences. So for example, next week I fly to Zurich. We're almost sold out now for the first Love Relationships U event. It's a tour that I'm doing of a 3.5 day retreat, which is circle and a beautiful emergent space of around 25-30 people. And we go through a journey around looking at how can we open our hearts to more love, to be more interpersonal and emotionally hygienic, and learn how to connect intimately with others. So the relational part and the healing aspect of our own life, being more connected to joy. So this is a holistic retreat that's not just for couples. It's not only a relationship retreat. It really is a healing retreat with an intimacy theme to it, because that's so much part of our trauma. Our trauma happened in connection, and it requires connection to heal it. But I'm super excited to be going back to Jupiter House in Zurich for this event. And like I said, we're about 1 or 2 tickets, I think, away from completely selling out. So that's really magical. We also sold out our Swedish event today. So I'm like, wow, okay, these things are all coming to completion. Still got a few spaces left for the UK in London, or near London, I should say. And still some spaces for the one in New Eden that we're doing in June. So super exciting. I'm enjoying that. Now, just going back to the whole piece around my parents being here, it's been a really profound journey with them, because years ago, I should say, when I was a young man, but I would say when I started facilitating around 20 years ago, I was really, really keen on inviting my parents into the magic that I had experienced. I wanted to let them in on my inner world. And I think there were parts of me that wanted them to see me, be proud of me, kind of get it for my own younger needs, although I didn't kind of realize that at the time. But there was definitely some kind of push and agenda behind what I was seeking from them. At least it wasn't made clear and transparent. And it was like realizing the possibility and the beauty, and kind of coming across something that was like, oh my God, you have to experience this. And I was so gung-ho, so intent on wanting to like spread the word, like a messenger or preacher, and wanting others to taste what I had tasted, and found myself feeling this surge of passion, like I had discovered the cure for cancer, and now everybody had to get in on it, and almost didn't quite understand, why wouldn't anybody want to participate in something like this, or kind of experience the wonder of all that I had tasted and experienced. And I noticed it was a hard first few years, because I don't think I really was understood in the path that I had taken. And especially with my dad, God bless him, he's just not somebody who is interested in doing emotional work, and doesn't quite understand it, even though he respects now my decision around it. And so initially, our encounters years ago would be a little bit tense. Like there'd just be this background sense of dissatisfaction, or from my end, almost like, why don't you get it? You don't get me. You need to do this. It was all about, you need to change. I'm doing something good here. And there was an agenda or expectation around it. And what's beautiful about where we're at today is this place of surrender, at least from my side, joy, and just sense of appreciation and gratitude for having the time that I have. Just noticing they're getting older, and this energy of wanting them to change, needing them to see me, get me. It's all complete. And I really have enjoyed coming full circle into that process and to release and let go of the need for them to be any different, and to accept them for who they are as they are, without making how they're showing up wrong in any way. And also to honor their capacity for connection and their way of connecting, without also trying to subtly coach and take them deeper, as if like somehow it's not satisfying enough to watch a TV show together or a movie or go on a bike ride and talk about the weather. It might seem trivial, or the past me might have gone, this isn't deep enough. I'm responsible for going further and helping them understand what's possible. And yet, no, not that part of me isn't welcome. It's just, it was misguided because it wasn't allowing me to feel the richness and depth of the connection that actually is here and available right now, in the simple moments, in the silence, in the listening to the frogs, in the watching a TV show together. You know, my mum, she used to do a lot of my events, actually. There was a period of time in 2006, 7, 8, actually even earlier than that, in 2004, where she would attend nearly every single one without missing a beat. There came a point where it actually felt like I was being perceived or interpreted more as her therapist. And I put a boundary and said, you know what, I don't feel like your son anymore. And until that right relationship is reorientated, it doesn't feel right to have you come to the events. And sure enough, a couple of years paused and things reset. And now it's not like she comes to all the events now either, but it's just something shifted. And with my father, I noticed that, you know, although he's never sat in circle, participated in a retreat, although he did come to a Heart Summit once 10 years ago in December 2013. For the last day, they watched from the back of the room, and I invited him on stage at the end to honor them. And it was a beautiful and very touching, moving moment for me. And I've also felt that things are changing in his nervous system, like through osmosis. There's this theory that, do we all have to do our own work, or can we just be surrounded epigenetically by the environment? And as enough of us shift and kind of open, that kind of transmits and loosens and lubricates and supports a healing journey. And I think age as well can soften the nervous system. But I think the biggest gift my father's received is me letting go of him needing to be any different than as he is, and appreciating and really being grateful for that, and nurturing the connection as it is rather than attempting for it to be more. And I think in receiving love and acceptance, that is more of a healing frequency than the push to try to kind of get it or kind of work on oneself. And I'm also just becoming aware of, you know, they're getting older, and the question of how much time is there left for quality connection. And, you know, I just wonder, it's like I could be so full on in work, travel, and really using this as my prime time to give my gift. And I know they wouldn't want me to compromise my work and my, you know, what I've built over these years, to kind of turn back in to look and spend more and more time to the point where it compromises that. And yet at the same time, when they're here, I get reminded of the limited moments that might be left, and the time that maybe is out of balance behind a screen, behind a computer, or at events and traveling. And it just creates the question, you know, is this balanced? Am I spending enough time where I can just be around them? Because that won't be forever. And I notice that, you know, I hear it again and again, that people don't realize what they have until they lose it. And we just have no idea when it's our time. And yeah, I'm just grateful for the family that I have, because, when I grew up, I was a little bit like ungrateful, or I didn't really feel or appreciate what I received. Like, for example, it was perfectly normal for me, or I should say it was perfectly normal for us as a community, a village, to get on a couple of buses and coaches and travel to France and have a vacation together. Like, the village would go away together. That would be normal. It was weird to hear later on that actually wasn't most people's norm. They didn't grow up in a village where the village would go on vacation together. Likewise, I grew up in a 400-year-old thatched cottage with mud walls. My parents lived there from the moment I was born. They still live there. My grandparents lived consistently in the local neighborhood and never moved and were completely stable. And so we were rooted, and I was rooted and grounded in one location, never moved. My parents are married, and my grandparents were married for like 75 years. My brother has been married. My uncle is married for never divorced. So there's zero divorce in my family. No one has moved away from the embedded locality that I grew up in. So I didn't have to deal with moving house a lot. Didn't have to deal with fractured relational dynamics. Now, of course, there were other things that I had to deal with, but these things were considered normal. I also grew up in one of the most beautiful parts of the UK, along the Jurassic coast, with red cliffs and green rolling hills and beautiful nature and amazing ocean. And I remember as a child thinking, this is so boring. There's nothing going on here. And then I spent years traveling around the world to the US. I lived in the United States. I've lived in Australia, Netherlands, UK, Panama, Costa Rica. Traveled all over Asia and other places as well, you name it. And then I came back to the UK, went back to my home, and I saw it for the first time. And I was like, wow. It's like, again, we don't realize what we have if that's the only thing we know. It reminds me of Neil Donald Walsh's profound statement: in the absence of that which is not, that which is not. Meaning, if we only know white, soon white ceases to exist and we cannot appreciate the brilliance of white, because something only exists relative to something else. And so I enjoy the relativity, which is why trauma and hardship in a lot of people's lives creates genius and creativity and incredible gifts, because that contrast has elevated that person's being into the light. So I get this. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I feel like this update is complete. Thank you for listening. And yeah, leave a comment if you haven't already joined our community, where we have a call every month on Zoom where we're all together live and connecting. It's a really, really beautiful piece. The next one is happening. It's always happening on the last Tuesday of every month, by the way. So I think the 30th of May is the next time we gather. But I'd love to connect with you. If you haven't already joined the community, just go to heartiq.org and click on the button that says join community. It's free. Just enter your name and email address, and voila, you'll have an opportunity to join us. Yay. All right, guys.